New CBS polling shows Americans are not over the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol. 62% of Americans surveyed say they expect violence from the losing side in future presidential elections. And as Americans reflect on January 6th, the country faces a number of challenges. Rising inflation and supply chain issues compound the difficulties the nation is facing with the surge in COVID cases. All of this has led to political turmoil on Capitol Hill. Democrats are trying to salvage the president's social and climate spending bill. They face growing pressure to pass it ahead of the midterm elections. For more on this, I want to bring in Sean Sullivan and Zak Hudak. Sean is a CBS News political contributor and White House reporter for The Washington Post. Zak is a CBS News congressional reporter. Welcome to both of you. Sean, let me start with you. We know the president will be on Capitol Hill Thursday. What else do we know about how Congress will mark the one-year anniversary of the January 6th riot?
Well, Tanya, let's start with the House side first. And we've heard from House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, who wrote a letter to her colleagues late last month talking about what the day would look like. And she's talking about the day as one of a solemn observance. And what that means, according to her, is that there will be historians talking about the weight of the day. There will be members sharing their observations and experiences, and then a vigil as well. And so I think we can expect a very emotional day on Capitol Hill. It's important to note that the House itself is not in session. And so there are questions about who exactly member-wise is going to be present for this event. We've heard that this is going to be live streamed, so people will be able to watch it. But I think there will be a close eye on who's actually there, because we have seen some Republican members of Congress try to play down the significance of what happened on that day. When you look at the Senate side, I think we're going to see an elevating discussion about voting rights. Chuck Schumer, the Senate Majority Leader, sent a letter to his colleagues earlier today talking about that very issue, talking about how they are going to be framing this debate and telling the American people in their view that there is a direct link between what happened on January 6th and what Republicans are doing around the country in terms of voting rights. So I think on the Senate side, you're going to see a real political and legislative push on that issue surrounding this day.
And Zak, former President Trump has a press conference planned for the day. What is he expected to say?
Tanya, we expect him to do just about what he's been doing since losing the 2020 election. We expect him to repeat his claims that Joe Biden won because of voter fraud, which have been totally unfounded. We expect him to play down what happened on the 6th and his role in it, kind of whitewash that day. We also expect him to put Republicans, by doing this, in kind of a tough spot, Republicans on the Hill, particularly ones who are a little bit more moderate and might be in a difficult district, because now all of a sudden they're going to be asked repeatedly again where they stand on the president's latest claims about both the 6th and about what actually happened in the 2020 election, which again, we have found out again and again, there is no evidence of widespread voter fraud. But that'll put Republicans in a tough spot because they'll have to keep answering those questions. And the calculus they have to make is, do I say something that probably I know is incorrect and that could damage my long-term legacy, or do I say something that could get me primaried by a Trump-loyal Republican who could knock me out in the primary, and then I don't even get to run in the general election? So that's what we expect them to do, and it will most likely complicate things for Republicans on the Hill.
And Zak, is it fair to say that for most, career Republicans or, politicians at least, they would prefer the president to sort of move on? That this is not a sort of a winning strategy in general. It certainly sort of appeals to a small amount of his base. But, if he is going to remain a major figurehead in the party, it seems that it doesn't behoove the party in general for him to keep, beating this dead horse.
Yeah, it's certainly something that Republicans are talking about behind the scenes. I think very few of them want to have their name behind it publicly because they fear the wrath of the president. They acknowledge how powerful it can be when he gets you in his crosshairs and sort of gets his supporters to come after you and to try to take you out of power. So there are a lot of people who have that opinion, but not that many people saying it out loud. A good example of this is the state of Georgia, where the president has come out against a very popular incumbent Republican governor, Brian Kemp. And a lot of it has to do with his qualms about the election in Georgia and his claims that there was fraud there. And that's really creating a complicated situation there, because now it's unclear who the nominee will even be, and whoever it is, they'll be greatly weakened when they presumably have to face Stacey Abrams in the general. So you see it playing out politically there, and it is something that's on Republicans' minds. But like I said, most of them are afraid to say it out loud.
Right. And Sean, a new CBS poll is showing that many Republicans are still unwilling to call the events of January 6th an insurrection. Even though, many do not approve of what happened, there's still 40% that called it patriotism and 56% calling it defending freedom. There are complicated numbers and complicated views within all of this, but how has the riot impacted the U.S.'s political legacy?
Well, it's something that we are hearing right now from both Democrats and Republicans who are launching campaigns for Congress, and I think something we're going to hear more about as we move toward the midterms. A lot of people view this as a really dark day for this country, a dark stain on democracy and on the way that this country has dealt with elections and its aftermath. But when you look at the actual political landscape right now, I'm struck by the number of Democratic candidates who bring this up in campaign launch videos. It's something that they feel can motivate their base by putting this imagery in these videos. I think it's their way of reminding people what's at stake in their view in these elections and the differences between some Republicans and Democrats. On the Republican side, this has become a big political issue. And I think Zach hit the nail on the head in terms of the conundrum this has created for Republicans. This has effectively become a litmus test in Republican primaries all across the map right now. And as we get deeper and deeper into the campaign season and we start to see televised debates and we start to see the candidates engage more, I think you're going to hear this and see this a lot more. And that litmus test and that question is, do Republican candidates agree with President Trump, former President Trump's false claims that the election was stolen, or do they disagree with that? I think that's emerging as a central question in not just congressional races, but gubernatorial races and contests all across the map. So even though we're at a time right now where we're talking about COVID, we're talking about the economy and a range of other issues in the political landscape, I think this issue and this question is one that we're going to hear and see more about as we move deeper into this year, Tanya.
Absolutely. And Sean, the Senate returns from recess on Monday. What's at stake for Democrats after they failed to pass the president's social and climate spending bill in December? Do they really need to get this done before midterms?
A lot is at stake, Tanya. It's really hard to overstate how big a deal this is for the Democratic Party. I mean, this was supposed to be a centerpiece of their domestic agenda. There was a huge amount of money in this plan that was going to go towards combating climate change. It was going to go towards expanding health care, instituting universal pre-K. And so now we're at a situation where it's entirely possible that the whole thing just doesn't happen. If you rewind back to December, we saw a breakdown between Senator Joe Manchin, who was the key swing vote on this entire package, and the White House. We saw some pretty ugly words and a back and forth that was pretty extraordinary that we hadn't seen before. So this really comes down to the two Joes, President Joe Biden, Senator Joe Manchin. Can they come up with some sort of deal, some sort of agreement that both sides can get behind? It ended in a pretty disastrous way for the Democrats late last year. The question is, can they pick up the pieces, put this back together? There's a lot at stake. And the last thing I would add is that a lot of Democrats look at the political landscape and they think, look, this might be our last chance to pass something on this scale, potentially for years. They're looking at the midterms privately. A lot of them are not confident that Democrats are going to do well. A lot of them think the House may be lost already and they may lose the Senate. So that they may not be able to do something like this in their view for a very long time. And that's also what adds to this pressure right now in this moment. But there really is no clear resolution and there's no clear way out of this for the White House and for congressional leaders. So the stakes are high and the pressure certainly is ramping up right now, too.
All right, Sean Sullivan and Zak Hudak, thanks to both of you. We appreciate it.